Christmas had always been my favorite time of year. Even at 63, I still felt a spark of excitement whenever December rolled around. It wasn't about presents or parties anymore, though I'd never say no to a good gift, but about family. About the warmth of my home, the smell of pine and cinnamon, the laughter of my children echoing through the halls. That was the dream. But this year, something had shifted. I could feel it in the air as soon as I walked through the front door of my son's house. It wasn't my place to overstay, and yet, there was a coldness in the way the door opened. And then the words hit me like a punch to the gut that I wasn't expecting you for Christmas, Dad. Those words came from my son, Michael, the very boy I'd held in my arms when he was born. The one I'd changed diapers for, attended every school play, and coached in soccer, even when my knees ached and my back screamed from the effort. I froze in the doorway. My breath caught. You weren't expecting me. I repeated, not sure I'd heard him correctly. Yes, Dad. It's just, you know, Mom's family, my wife, the kids. We weren't planning on a visit this year. That I wanted to laugh, but it came out hollow, bitter. Not planning on me for Christmas? Not expecting me? At 63, after a lifetime of effort, love, and sacrifice, I felt invisible. Suddenly, I was just an afterthought. And yet, I remembered something. I was nobody's afterthought. I left. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't even cry. I just closed the door behind me and drove home in silence. My car was the only witness to my humiliation, and I let the engine roar my frustration into the night. Back home, I sat in my favorite chair, staring at the fire, thinking. My son had built a beautiful life for himself, big house, fancy cars, his perfect little family, but somewhere along the line, had forgotten one simple truth: the foundation of all of it was me. Every dollar I'd saved, every late night I'd worked, every compromise I'd made, it had been for him. And now, he dismissed me. I didn't make threats. I didn't call him to scold him. I just did what felt natural. I decided to teach him a lesson he wouldn't forget. A quiet, powerful lesson that spoke louder than any words could. It started with the mortgage. I knew Michael had always been meticulous about his bills. Always paid on time, never a day late. But I had access. I had been listed as a co-signer on the mortgage years ago when he and his wife had bought the house. He probably thought I'd retired from involvement, thought I'd be harmless. But I had other plans. I canceled the mortgage payment. Not in anger, not recklessly, but with calculated precision. I timed it to be just before Christmas, knowing the payment was due on the 25th. I knew the chaos it would cause, the calls from the bank, the panic that would ripple through his household. It was poetic justice, in a way. A subtle, silent revenge that would make him realize the consequences of taking me for granted. The days leading up to Christmas were tense for me in a different way. I didn't gloat, I didn't even think about the act itself. I just watched, waited, and reflected. I spent evenings by the fire, making a list of memories, of all the Christmases we'd shared when Michael was a boy, of the nights I stayed up wrapping gifts while his mother slept. And yes, I allowed myself a little smirk when I imagined the panic that would unfold when the bank called. On Christmas Eve, I went about my own traditions. A simple dinner, a small tree, and a quiet walk around the neighborhood, appreciating the lights and laughter from houses filled with family. I felt lighter somehow, more liberated. The world had tried to remind me I was unwanted, but I had reclaimed my sense of power, quietly, calmly, deliberately. Meanwhile, I knew Michael was losing his sense of control. I could see it in my mind's eye, the frantic phone calls, the emails to the bank, the confusion and stress as he realized the payment hadn't gone through. And when I did finally speak to him, over the phone, it was nothing aggressive. Just a simple, calm voice. Michael, I said. Did you forget something? There was a pause on the other end, and then panic in his voice. Dad. I don't know what happened. I paid it. I thought I did that. I am sure it's just an oversight, I said, smiling to myself. But I guess we all forget the people who made our lives possible, don't we? I didn't need to say more. The lesson had landed. He had panicked, worried about losing the house, and perhaps, for the first time in years, realized that his father, me, was still relevant, still significant. That night, I sat alone by the fire, a glass of wine in hand, thinking about how family could sometimes hurt in ways they didn't intend. I also thought about how love had its limits when it was met with neglect and disregard. My revenge wasn't about causing financial ruin, it was about reminding him that actions have consequences, that disrespecting those who gave you everything is never without consequence. Christmas morning, I got a text. It was from Michael. Simple, short, but meaningful. Dad. I am sorry. Can we talk? I smiled, because that was all I needed. I wasn't looking for apologies, or tears, or guilt trips. I wanted acknowledgement. And I got it. We met at a local coffee shop, just the two of us. The tension was thick at first, like a knot that hadn't been untied in decades. But as we sipped our coffees, the conversation began to flow. He admitted he'd been careless, that he hadn't realized how much had taken me for granted. I told him, calmly but firmly, that respect wasn't something you demanded, it was something you earned, and that sometimes, the hardest lessons are the quietest ones. He looked at me with genuine remorse, and for the first time, I felt that we were reconnecting, not as father and son, not as a patriarch and heir, but as human beings recognizing each other's value. The week after Christmas was different. Michael made sure the mortgage was up to date, double-checked everything, and even called me to discuss some of the home maintenance issues I'd been pointing out for years. It was like I'd woken up from a long slumber, realizing the stability and love I had provided weren't things to be taken for granted. And for me, I felt a satisfaction deeper than any gift could provide. Revenge had a sweet taste, yes, but reconciliation had an even sweeter one. I hadn't humiliated him publicly, I hadn't caused scandal, I hadn't burned bridges. I had simply reminded him, quietly, effectively, what it felt like to be overlooked, and in doing so, restored a balance that had been missing for far too long. Weeks later, I received an unexpected invitation, a family dinner. Not just my son and his family, but my daughter, my grandchildren, everyone. This time, there was no hesitation, no cold indifference. They were expecting me, and more importantly, they were happy I was coming. That Christmas, I didn't just celebrate the holiday, I celebrated the return of respect, recognition, and the quiet power of knowing your worth. I realized that revenge doesn't have to be loud, explosive, or destructive. Sometimes, the most profound revenge is simply a subtle act that forces people to wake up and see what they've lost. Michael never forgot that Christmas. Every time I visit now, he greets me with genuine warmth, no reminders needed, no awkward pauses. He knows, and I know, that boundaries are important, and that every relationship, especially one between parent and child, requires care, attention, and respect. Peter, 63, a father who was overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. But I learned that the quietest moves often carry the loudest messages. I canceled a mortgage payment, yes, but in doing so, I reclaimed my dignity, reminded my son of his roots, and restored a bond that might have been lost forever. And as I sit by the fire this Christmas, listening to the laughter of those who truly love me, I smile. Not out of malice or spite, but out of triumph, the triumph of being seen, valued, and remembered. The triumph of knowing that sometimes, you don't have to raise your voice to make the world hear you. This Christmas was mine, in every sense. And it'll never be an afterthought again.